So, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles x Naruto comic collab has come to its end after 4 riveting chapters. And while this collab is something we first talked about when its first chapter came out, it's something that I've kind of forgotten about over the course of the last 1.5 to 2 years. And that's not because it wasn't good, it's just because the chapters only came out every couple of months and I wasn't super up to date on when they were released. However, with the 4th and final chapter just coming out a couple of days ago, I figured there'd be no better time than right now to do a rundown on the entire story of this crossover, because it is a really fun story that takes place in the time period of a pre-time skip Naruto, and thus it displays a unified Team 7 taking on a mission of equal severity to that of the Land of Waves arc. However, in a time period post the Chunin exams, where both Naruto and Sasuke have unlocked their iconic jutsu, and therefore if you have the itch for some old Naruto nostalgia, this is pretty much the perfect crossover for you. The only key difference being that in this crossover, Sakura is actually a pretty well-written character. And if that doesn't get you excited for the events that are coming up in this 4-chapter review, well then, I don't know what to tell you. So we're taking it back to the old school today, because today we're talking Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles x Naruto, all 4 chapters explained. But before we get to explaining the first new bit of Naruto content we've gotten in damn near a decade, guys, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. And if you're looking for one additional NCHammer 23 video a week, you can go ahead and find my Naruto reaction series using the 4th wall link in my description below. We're on to the Chunin exam, so I guess we're actually kind of close to the right time period right now. But before we get into all that, we gotta talk about our favorite recurring sponsor to the page, FÜM. Have you ever caught yourself reaching for a bad habit without even realizing you were doing it? Maybe it's because you were stressed or bored, or maybe because you wanted to fit in. Well, that's where FÜM comes into play. See, FÜM understands that it's not always about quitting, but sometimes about replacing. And that's where FÜM comes into play, because FÜM offers you a simple and enjoyable way to break away from bad habits, while still having something satisfying to reach for. See, FÜM is an award-winning flavored air device that delivers great taste without any harmful chemicals. Instead of inhaling vapor, you simply inhale air, mixed with natural, non-toxic flavors that combine on the way in and satisfy that itch. And whether you're looking to keep your hands busy or your mouth busy, FÜM's premium wood design, fixed with its fidget aspects, make it a fantastic fidget toy. This right here is my personal favorite. It feels premium in your hand. It's easy to take anywhere, and even easier to personalize. See, FÜM offers a litany of different flavors, spearmint being my personal favorite. It's refreshing, it keeps me sharp, and I genuinely think it makes my breath smell better. But if you're not into minty flavors, there's literally an option for everyone. So what are you waiting for? Over 500,000 people have already chosen FÜM in their journey to better choices. And if you're ready to try it, now is the time. For a limited time, if you order the Journey Pack using code NCHammer, you'll get a free FÜM Topper, an awesome accessory to level up your FÜM experience. So click the link in my description below, or go to tryfum.com/NCHammer, or scan the QR code on screen right now to get yours today. Also, if I sound weird, I apologize. I have the most intense sinusitis or sinus infection or allergies I've ever had my entire life. The entire front of my face hurts. But I'm on enough caffeine and Dayquil to beat Secretariat in a foot race, so here we go. So chapter 1 of this crossover opens with Kakashi holding a scroll that details the mission that he and Team 7 are on. That explains to us that Team 7 has been assigned to escort April O'Neil back to the Big Apple Village. Yeah, that's what they call New York. Now, after we see the scroll, we pan out to see April O'Neil standing with Team 7 in the woods overlooking the skyline of New York. And Naruto is trying to right a turtle that's flipped onto his shell, while Sakura's yelling at him not to mess with local wildlife. Now, it's this point that Naruto asks if this is legitimately a B-ranked mission, because all they've done up until this moment is save turtles from being flipped on their backs. But it's this moment Naruto trips, dropping the turtle that he was trying to save, but on its right side upside, which warrants a laugh out of April O'Neil. Now, in response to this laugh from April, Sasuke says, "Oh, so you are able to talk. We haven't heard you talk since we left Lady Tsunade's office. Maybe bringing Naruto was a good thing after all." To which April responds to by saying, "Hey man, you're not really super talkative yourself. Maybe we both got a lot of things going on in our minds right now," which, you know, fair. Now, it's this point that Sakura, whose forehead is substantially smaller in this collab than it is in Naruto, and Naruto asks why April needed to meet with Tsunade in the first place, as that was the reason she was in Konoha. To which April responds to by saying that she needed to talk to the forefront ninja biologist in the entire world, which apparently is Tsunade. And she needed to do this because because apparently back in her home, Big Apple Village, a scientist by the name of Dr. Baxter Stockman had been released from his university for untold reasons, unless he wanted to talk to news outlets about his unjustified firing, and that's where April O'Neil came into the mix. See, apparently Dr. Baxter had been hired to fix the university's machines. However, because he considered himself a genius who couldn't be constrained to just one field of research, he became obsessed with the ideas of the military applications of biomutants, bioweapons that he could make using his ooze. It's pretty standard TMNT stuff. And thus Stockman dreamed of making innately powerful soldiers with the characteristics of both animals and humans, all in order to make essentially what he identified as mutant ninjas. Now, to this point that both Sasuke and Naruto begin to think to themselves, combining animal and human, that sounds somewhat familiar. As Naruto focuses in on the 8 trigram seal on his stomach, which is obviously symbolic of the combination of his and Kurama's chakras, and Sasuke thinks of Orochimaru and how Orochimaru is basically the combination of a person and snakes. Now, at this point that Sakura steps in as the only person in this group with any modicum of education, yes, and says to April, but all of his research was theoretical, right? To which April O'Neil kind of confoundingly says, oh, yeah, theoretical. Listen, Sakura is better written in this crossover. April is not. She, for some reason throughout the 4 chapters just purposely withholds information from the people that absolutely need it, also that she can maybe get a better story. I don't know. The reasonings are hazy at best. Anyways, as April is legitimately lying to Sakura's actually very good question, somebody screams, April O'Neil, you're coming with the Foot Clan. And it's this point that the Foot Clan is revealed. Led by somebody with a massive foxtail, and the more you get to know this fox-tailed character, the more they kind of just feel like a furry OC insert. Anyways, the Foot Clan tells Team 7 to hand over the reporter, to which Kakashi very quickly and funnily responds to by saying, hand over? I thought you guys were the Foot Clan. And with comedic chops like that, it really is no wonder he was able to bag my guy. But apparently the Foot Clan isn't a big fan of Jerry Seinfeld stand-up-esque comedy, as they say, grrr, you'll pay for this disrespect. And as Naruto stares upon the visage of this one-tailed fox, Kurama chips in and tells him that's no animal, and it's no mere human. She's something else. It's like a fake one-tailed fox. Before Naruto can get any deeper into his conversation with Kurama, Kakashi tells Team 7 to focus up. And as the Foot Clan descends upon them to begin combat, from somewhere appears a bunch of smoke bombs. And from that smoke, we see a katana, a bow staff, nunchucks, and a sai emerge, all wielded by 3-fingered hands. On top of this, we also see a cane emerge from a 5-fingered furry hand. Now in this moment, the one-tailed fox realizes that they've been defeated and decides to retreat. And as the smoke settles, we see the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles standing alongside Master Splinter, all of whom are wearing Ombu Black Ops masks. On top of that, they're all wearing, at least somewhere on their body, a ninja headband. However, the symbol is that of an apple. Now, because Team 7 is unfamiliar to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and they have April, they tell Team 7 to let her go or get stomped. To which the obvious response from Team 7 is, we're not gonna give up our escortee to a bunch of people in masks. And April, who's kind of on a streak of being the worst, blurts out, wait, I can explain, but before she does any explaining, she says, or I could just let this play out, as she pulls out her camera. And it's this point that Leonardo jumps into combat against Sasuke, saying, I got their leader, which is an insane thing to say when you consider the fact that there's a full-grown adult with Team 7. Now, Sasuke responds to this by saying, what makes you think I'm the leader? To which Donatello responds, by saying, you may not be the leader, but I know vengeance when I see it, which is not really an answer. Now, Donatello begins to try and lecture Sasuke as he says that this vengeance will only lead to his destruction as he swings at him, but Sasuke disappears using a substitution jutsu, reappearing under him and trying to land a massive left-footed kick against him that Donatello blocks with his katana. At which point Sasuke tells Donatello that if this is the best you can do, I got nothing to worry about. To which Donatello responds by saying, I'm just getting started. Now in the split off of all these battles between the Turtles and Team 7, Sakura has pulled Raphael's card. And as she throws kunai at Raphael to close a distance and then closes with a kunai in her hand, as she swings at Raphael, he blocks it with his shell. All the while telling Sakura that he'd rather be fighting the snobby looking kid with bangs. And as to who that means, as to whether or not it's Naruto or Sasuke, I can't really say. But Sakura takes this to heart as she uses the full strength of a right straight punch to shatter a boulder that Raphael was standing near, screaming at him, are you sure you want to be fighting somebody else? Causing Raphael to begin visibly sweating and to start running from Sakura. Now, Naruto got kind of screwed over in this whole mix, as he has to fight against Michelangelo and Donatello simultaneously. However, Naruto is excited about this because it means he gets to use his shadow clones. And as Naruto bursts into a proverbial army of shadow clones, Donatello and Michelangelo begin defeating them with relative ease. However, they just keep coming. Now, at this point that it's revealed that Kakashi is battling it out with Master Splinter, as he tells him, your team is powerful, but it lacks polish. And Master Splinter's retort is legitimately, no you. But as Kakashi is battling against Master Splinter, he realizes that all of their movements seem relatively similar, but something is off. But in this moment, Master Splinter begins to grow a lightning ball at the end of his staff and jam it into the ground, causing lightning to fly out of the ground in all directions. Now after this, we cut back to Sasuke, who's telling Leonardo he really has no right to lecture him on the topic of vengeance because he seemingly fights as though he wants it himself. Leonardo retorts by saying that he doesn't fight for vengeance, he fights to protect his brothers, to which Sasuke says, yeah, I don't really have that burden. We then cut to Sakura, who is blocking a kick from Raphael and is telling him that he's not as slow as he looks, to which Raphael responds to by saying that she's way stronger than she looks. But as the two of them separate, Raphael says, we both know in this ninja-eat-ninja world, strength alone ain't gonna cut it. And as he closes the distance once again, Sakura lands another kick to his shell. Now it's then revealed that Raphael and Donatello, while they're not necessarily struggling against the clones, don't really see any end in sight. And thus they formulate a plan to lure in the main body of Naruto. Michelangelo purposely leaves an opening behind him to lure in the main body of Naruto, and when Naruto goes to punch him in the head, he pops his head into his shell, which makes Naruto believe he's punched off his head. Now, to this point, the Donatello comes in for what is effectively a finishing move on the main body of Naruto. Now, April, who was watching all of this happen and has the capacity to stop it literally whenever she wants, is instead filming it, but realizes that this fight is happening way too quickly for any of it to come out anything other than blurry.
So she's not stopping it for legitimately no reason.
Now, Team 7 regroups with their backs all against each other to try and protect April from the people they believe are trying to take her in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. But as the Turtles are about to attack again, Splinter tells them all to stop. And he looks at Kakashi and says, impressive, your young shinobi were able to rival even the strength of my sons. Going on to tell Team 7 that they are not necessarily a clan, but a family. But before these 9 people can rest on too many platitudes, Kakashi says, well, I guess I have to be thankful to your family. You finally gave my students a good workout, but I think I've seen enough, as he reveals his Sharingan. Now, to this point, the Kakashi does something that we've never seen him or really anybody up until Sora to do with the Sharingan, which is that after revealing his Sharingan, he appears to use some kind of gravity pull to rip off the masks of all of the members of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Splinter included. And after looking upon the faces of all of the Turtles and Master Splinter, Kakashi says, it's good to see you again, Hamato Yoshi. Now, Hamato Yoshi is a somewhat ambiguous character in the lore of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. In some tellings of their stories, Hamato Yoshi is the human version of Splinter before he's mutated with ooze. In other tellings of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, however, he is the owner of the rat that later would become Splinter. But it's revealed pretty much immediately in the beginning of Chapter 2, because the Hamato Yoshi cliffhanger is what happens at the end of Chapter 1, that the latter is the case in this universe. See, because in the beginning of Chapter 2, Team 7 and the Turtles all look at Kakashi and Splinter and say, you guys know each other? At which point Kakashi reveals that when he was young, he heard about Hamato Yoshi's incredibly prestigious martial arts clan, and thus he went out of his way to see him battle when he was a youth. But Kakashi tells everybody that last he heard, Hamato Yoshi had been betrayed by some rogue element. And it's at this point that Kakashi realizes that this version of Hamato Yoshi is also much shorter than he remembers. And he doesn't remember Hamato Yoshi having a tail, which is a weird thing to point out when you consider the fact that Splinter is just a literal full rat. Now, it's this point that Splinter tells us that he was Hamato Yoshi's beloved pet rat. And the combined forces of Splinter and the Turtles tell Team 7 that they're the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. At which point Splinter introduces his 4 sons and Kakashi introduces his 3 young shinobi. Kakashi then apologizes to Splinter about what happened to Hamato Yoshi, and him and Splinter shake hands, and everybody's buddy-buddy now. Now, it's at this point that all 10 of them begin working their way towards the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles' secret lair, and Donatello opens the door to the secret lair by clicking in a secret hidden rock. However, as the 10 of them walk into what is essentially a fancy sewer drain, it's revealed that the one-tailed fox has been watching them this entire time. Now, April begins to walk with the Turtles as they ask her how her journey was, to which she responds by saying it was nice and boring, until of course the Turtles themselves showed up. She then rather indignantly says, you're welcome for filming your little ninja sparring match, by the way. To which Raph very appropriately says, you didn't even try to break it up. Sakura almost turned me into turtle soup. But while Raph was upset about literally almost dying, Michelangelo and Donatello tell Naruto all about how much they loved fighting against his shadow clones. And Leonardo and Sasuke skulk along as Leonardo says that you can only get stronger by fighting strong opponents. Now, it's this point that Donatello jams some kind of password password into a brick wall, and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Team 7 are plunged down into the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles' secret lair. Naruto plays some video games, Kakashi has tea with Splinter, Leonardo and Sasuke meditate, which is interesting, not the kind of thing I would expect Sasuke to do. Naruto gets some coffee, Sakura punches a punching bag, and Naruto and Michelangelo go skateboarding. Now Naruto goes on to tell Michelangelo that their place is radical, to which Michelangelo responds to by saying, well, yeah, but I'm sure your place is cooler, which activates the unskippable cutscene of Naruto telling him, yeah, no, I'm an orphan and I had no one, but I have people now, which also starts the unskippable cutscene of Naruto's backstory exposition as Kakashi tells Splinter that Naruto is a Jinchuriki and that the fourth Hokage sealed the nine-tailed fox inside of Naruto, but Naruto doesn't know who did that to him, so he'd appreciate if Splinter didn't bring it up to him. And it's like, hey man, don't tell the stranger Naruto's deep, dark lore if you don't want it getting back to Naruto. But anyways, Sasuke, who's apparently sick of meditating, gets up and says, I don't get it, to everybody in the lair. You're a powerful and united clan. You just beat the brakes off the Foot Clan like they were punching bags. Why are you hiding here underground? To which Splinter responds to by saying, not what, but who, and that who is Oroku Saki. Now, Oroku Saki is just the human name of Shredder. In every single telling of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Oroku Saki is Shredder's actual name. Now, it's this point that Splinter tells Team 7 about the backstory of Oroku Saki, and how he was a troubled boy who came from the Big Apple Village to train with Master Splinter's owner, Hamato Yoshi. And because Hamato Yoshi also had a troubled past, he took on Oroku Saki as a student. But Oroku Saki wasn't able to get over his troubled past, and his cruelty shone through his fighting style, and eventually when he saw an opening and believed that he had already learned enough from Hamato Yoshi, he stole Hamato Yoshi's teachings that were kept in a secured family scroll and killed him when he tried to take it back from him. And as the dojo of Hamato Yoshi was burning down after Oroku Saki lit it aflame, Splinter as a rat was able to just barely escaping down to the sewers. And as he wandered around for days and days and days, he eventually stumbled upon 4 turtles coated in ooze. And in order to save all of them and scoop them up, he also got coated in ooze. It's a very, very standard of the origin story of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Old rat saves baby turtles. Because they were both coated in ooze, the baby turtles come out as babies and the rat comes out as old. And thus Splinter trained the turtles to be ninjas in the way of the teachings of Hamato Yoshi, and as the turtles grew larger and more curious, they sought answers on the above world. However, by seeking answers in the Big Apple City, the turtles constantly found themselves running afoul of the Foot Clan, and thus a natural rivalry began between the Foot Clan and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, with the #1 problem from the Foot Clan being Oroku Saki, aka Shredder. Now at this point the Kurama chips into Naruto and says, you're very similar to them, however in your case, I'm the ooze. That is to say that Naruto has been altered into some kind of man-beast hybrid through the existence of Kurama inside of him. Now at this point that April chips in and tells everybody about how nobody wanted to run Dr. Stockman's story, about how his original mutagenic ooze wasn't actually theoretical at all, however he had lost the original batch years ago. However, after years of research he could finally reproduce that ooze consistently. However, because he had been thrown out from his university, regardless of how impressive the scientific advancements he had made were, he wasn't getting the acknowledgments, the accolades, and the awards he believed he deserved. He was a narcissistic scientist. And it's this point that it's revealed that the only reason that he was able to continue his research is because he took funding from the Foot Clan, who after they realized that he was able to consistently make the mutagenic ooze, decided they didn't need him anymore and just needed his research. And thus they killed Dr. Stockman right in front of April. But as they were about to kill April as well, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles flew into the laboratory and took out the Foot Clan, making them bonded to April. And thus the reason that April decided to go to Konoha is because she needed to talk to Tsunade about the science that Dr. Stockman created. However, while telling the story, April's stomach begins to growl, therefore the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles ask Splinter if they can go on a food retrieval mission. And thus they go to get pizza, with all of Team 7, leaving only April and Splinter down in the secret lair, which immediately is a regrettable decision when it's revealed that the Foot Clan has been able to find the secret lair of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And thus Master Splinter and April have to try and fight back against the one-tailed fox, a bunch of Foot Clan goons, and eventually it's revealed, Shredder. Thus Chapter 2 comes to an end. Chapter 3 opens with Team 7 and the Turtles looking out over Big Apple City's nighttime skyline, and all of them flying in action to get to the nearest pizza shop. And while Team 7 is in awe of the beauty of Big Apple City, the Turtles say, well, it does seem beautiful at a distance, unfortunately it's overrun with crime, as they see the Foot Clan shaking down some regular citizens. And thus they take a brief detour on their way to the pizza stop to beat down some goons. And after they easily dispatch the Foot Clan goons, they finally make their way to the pizza restaurant. Naruto hopes that pizza is as expensive as ramen because he'd like to buy a treat for their new hosts. But fortunately for Naruto and his frog wallet, the pizza's actually free because the pizza place gives the turtles free pizza on account of the fact that they keep the city safe. And thus the turtles in Team 7 pop back into the sewers to make their way back to their lair, and we cut to April and Master Splinter locked up in what appears to be the Foot Clan's tower. Shredder tells Splinter and April that even though their mutant fox Alopex is underwhelming and disappointing, they're still somewhat proud of them for being able to hunt down the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles' secret lair, saying that even though she's usually incompetent, she's proved herself to not be a complete waste of ooze. Now this pisses off Splinter because Splinter doesn't agree with how Shredder rules, telling him that he leads with fear and stolen power, and yet he still has the gall to disparage a child who's just trying their hardest. Now, it's this point that April tries to stall Shredder, saying that Shredder can't get rid of either Master Splinter or her yet, as April knows that Shredder abducted them to either decipher Stockman's last scroll on how to make the ooze or to lure the turtles into a trap. And neither of those two things have been accomplished by Shredder yet. However, Shredder reveals that he doesn't actually need April because April had the final scroll on him, and the final scroll was actually just holding the final vial of ooze that Dr. Stockman ever made. And thus April, by coming back with the ooze from Konoha back to the Big Apple City, had kind of effectively just transported the ooze directly to Master Shredder. And thus Shredder reveals to April that he's not going to use this ooze in some ridiculous way, like throwing it into a water table, but rather he's going to give it to one worthy recipient. I'll let you guess who that is. Anyways, we cut back to the turtles as they stumble upon their ransacked secret lair and realize that Shredder had abducted Splinter and April. Now Naruto tries to put the blame on him and the rest of Team 7 as he says that they would have been in their secret lair if not for them, at which point Leonardo steps in and says no. Sasuke was right earlier when he said that at one point we would eventually have to face the Foot Clan, and now we have no option other than to do exactly that. And thus we cut back to the Foot Clan castle, where Shredder has lined up 4 goons who have apparently passed a litany of tests to receive the highest honor of being doused in the ooze that he has in this final vial. And thus all 4 of these goons begin to monsterize. Now, Alopex is in horrified awe of these transformations, as she wonders out loud to herself, is this what it means to be a mutant? Is it to be a monster? At which point Splinter, from the other side of the room, while still locked up in irons, consoles her and says, there are many things in life we don't get to decide on. Regardless of the hand that you're given, you can play it really however you want to. Take, for example, me and my family. What many people would identify as mutated monsters are fighting for good here in the Big Apple Village. So regardless of how you look or what mutations you have, you get to decide what you do with your future. So what will you do with your future, Alopex? However, unfortunately for Alopex, their future doesn't seem all that bright, as the first thing that Master Shredder tells his new mutants to do is kill Alopex. But before the furry OC can die a horrific death, Team 7 and the Turtles kick through a window in the Foot Castle. And thus the face-off between these newly mutated, no pun intended here, Foot Soldiers and the combined forces of the Turtles in Team 7 begins, as Raph and Sakura take on the red mutated Foot Soldier and realize, wow, so this is what happens when humans are exposed to ooze. No wonder Lady Tsunade was so concerned. Now, this red soldier is incredibly fast and covered in barb-like protrusions, and thus it immediately gets behind Raph to strike at his shell. However, Sakura saves him by planting one hand on his shell and kicking away his arm. And as the two of them collect themselves, Raph says, listen, I have a plan and I know you have the arm for it. To which Sakura responds by saying, you want me to throw you, don't you? To which Raph says, well, let's say launch. At which point, Sakura takes him into one of her arms and tosses him at Mach speeds. And Raph pulls himself into his shell and aims directly for the vitals of the goon, taking him out immediately. Now, Kakashi and Leonardo are fighting against the yellow mutated foot soldier, who's turned his arms into blades, of which Leonardo is desperately blocking. But Kakashi reaffirms that Leonardo's going to be alright as he says, I think we have this guy beat in terms of blade work. Even as they land a flurry of bladed blows against this yellow foot soldier, they realize his durability isn't going to allow for standard blades to strike through. And thus Kakashi tells Leonardo that he has a flashy idea in mind and activates his Raikiri as he asks for Leonardo to buy him a second, to which Leonardo responds by saying, I'll get you two. And thus as the two of them collect themselves and Kakashi uncovers his Sharingan, the two of them dive in with a combined attack, as Kakashi applies his Raikiri to Leonardo's katana, which allows for them to slash through the foot soldier. We then cut to Donatello and Sasuke, who are fighting against a blue foot soldier. And while fighting against this blue, also kind of just really stabby mutant, Sasuke talks about how with his Sharingan he's able to predict its every move and identify its weaknesses. To which Donatello goes, yeah, cool eyes, dog. I can do that with my super-powered brain. And thus, while the two of them acknowledge the fact that this blue foot soldier is ridiculously durable, that through their combined either dojutsu or intellect, they've been able to identify a weak spot in the back of its head. And thus, the two of them land a combined kick to the back of the blue mutant's head, striking its weak point and, I believe, scrambling its brains all over the ground. Now, it's this point that we cut to Naruto and Michelangelo, and it's this point that I'm literally just now realizing that every single member of Team 7 is fighting with their color-coordinated pair of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Like, yeah, Sasuke's technically got a lot more blue than Donatello's purple, but Heavy Sasuke does have a purple rope. And obviously, Naruto and Michelangelo, orange. Anyways, they're fighting against a purple foot soldier. And instead of being all pointy, this one seemingly has a body that appears to be made of dough. And thus, as the two strike at this foot soldier, they realize they can't really damage it because its body is so pliable and sticky. However, because its body is seemingly made out of dough, Michelangelo, the pizza expert, says the best way to deal with dough is to spin it and spin it hard. And thus, Michelangelo and Naruto both kick the purple foot soldier in opposite directions and literally spin the top of his torso off the bottom. Just, cut a dude in half. And thus now, with all the mutated foot soldiers gone, the Turtles in Team 7 face down against Shredder, as they tell him to face the fact that he's lost. However, Shredder isn't super down with the whole idea of losing, and thus he cracks the vial of ooze that he used on his 4 goons and he pours it all over himself, mutating into a monstrous, spiky mutant with Sasuke curse mark-esque wings and what appears to be a green Rinnegan eye in the middle of his chest. And that is how Chapter 3 ends. So let's move on to Chapter 4, the final chapter that just dropped a couple of days ago. Chapter 4 opens with the beginning of Team 7 and the Turtles, that is to say everybody but Splinter and Kakashi, attacking Shredder, but none of their attacks are seemingly having any effect. And as Shredder fights back against the opponents he has in all directions, he tells them all to surrender all hope in the shadow of Shredder. However, it's at this moment that female Crash Bandicoot, Alopex, says forget all of this, and frees April and Master Splinter from their irons, all the while taking the tsundere route of saying that she's not doing this to save them, she's just doing what it takes to survive, which I don't think you needed Master Splinter and April to survive, but whatever floats your goat. Or your fursuit. Now, it's at this moment that we cut back to all of the combatants in the battle against Shredder. And everybody is roughed up, especially Raphael, who Sakura is pulling gigantic thorns out of the shell of, as Shredder has the ability to fire projectiles in all directions. Now, at this point, the Kurama begins to whisper to Naruto, saying that Shredder isn't the only powerful monster here, and that Naruto should release Kurama to see which monster is more powerful, him or Shredder. But Naruto tells Kurama that he doesn't need his strength, and then proceeds to use a one-tailed Kurama cloak, akin to the cloak that he uses in his first battle against Sasuke in the Valley of the End. And it's at this point that Naruto says, I decide how to protect my own friends. To which Shredder responds by saying, friends? Only a mewling child could stick to such naive thoughts when surrounded by the contrary, that all of your friends are simply liabilities. I was born alone in the gutters of the Big Apple Village, and thus I decided that I would rise above everybody in the power scheme of this world and destroy the Big Apple Village that had no love for me. Which, you know, once again, obviously starts Naruto's unskippable cutscene, as he tells Shredder that he also was born with nobody. However, because he tried to reach out to those around him, he found love and a family. And that was Shredder's fault and his selfishness and his constant desire for power and advancement that stopped him from ever making the connections that Naruto has made. And thus Naruto makes an army of shadow clones, all of whom have his Kurama cloak on, as he points at Shredder and says, if I can't help people in the Big Apple Village, I'll never be able to become Hokage. And thus he launches an attack on Shredder with all of his shadow clones, which incentivizes all of the Turtles to once again resume their attack on Shredder, as they say he never backs down on his word, that's his ninja way. And it's like, how they know that? He hasn't said that yet. And as all of the Turtles strike at Shredder, they tell him the reasons that they're motivated to fight back against him. Their family, their friends, and their village. However, even as they land these strikes against Shredder, they realize that they're not making that much progress. And thus Sakura comes up with a plan to have everybody stand on a platform-sized rock that she's going to hurl at Shredder. And Donatello lets everybody know that Shredder is seemingly made up now of some kind of bio-metal, and thus a lightning-based attack will stun him. And thus Kakashi activates his Raikiri, and Sasuke his Chidori, and they all hop on top of the platform that Sakura hurls at Shredder. And Kakashi and Sasuke both land their respective lightning blade attacks on Shredder, stunning him. After which the Turtles and an army of Naruto's clones land a flurry of attacks on Shredder, but even with the amount of damage they believe they've done to his body, he's still standing. And thus they all try to think about a way that they could destroy Shredder in one fell swoop. And thus Naruto activates his Rasengan, and he flies in for one final attack while April films the entire battle. And as Naruto flies in with his Rasengan. Behind him is Sasuke with his Chidori, Kakashi with his Raikiri, Sakura charging chakra into a punch, and the turtles all closing on Shredder with their respective weapons, landing a rainbow flurry of attacks on Shredder that completely destroy his body. And as he screams out that he doesn't believe there's any way that he could lose in this battle, Naruto tells him to believe it. And thus all that's left of Shredder is his helmet and a puddle of ooze. However, Kakashi tells everybody even though it seems as though Shredder is gone, he can still detect his chakra. However, the turtles don't care, and they say that if Shredder reconstitutes, they'll just beat him again. After this, April talks about how she's excited to report on the end of the Foot Clan, which she now has all on video, and the turtles and Master Splinter extend an offer to Alopex, the furry OC insert, to stay with them down in their secret lair now that she has nowhere to live. And like a true tsundere, she blushes and doesn't say anything. Kakashi then tells the Genin of Team 7 that they should be getting back to Konoha, but Michelangelo says, but first, pizza. And then with the final frame of this comic crossover, we see every single member of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Team 7, and Alopex enjoying a gigantic pizza party. So all in all, how was this crossover story? Objectively fine. Listen, sure, the writing's a bit cheesy, no pun intended, and the plot is about literally as basic as you could get from a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles plotline. And while some of the more important and deeper themes of Naruto are explored, it's more done at a surface level. You really can't expect all that much more out of a 4-chapter comic run. So is it the best piece of Naruto IP that's been released in the last couple of years? No. But was it fun to see Team 7 back together, working all as one? Yeah, absolutely. So overall, I give this 4-chapter collaboration between Naruto and TMNT like a solid 7. Not great, not bad, fun enough to read the entire thing. But what did you guys think of this crossover event? Did you enjoy it? Would you like to see more things like this from the Naruto universe? Let me know in the comments below. And while you guys are down there, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna go sleep for like the next 12 hours.